So first things first, everybody, here's what we need to start with. We would like to thank the Paradise Valley Community College and the Maricopa Community College District for supporting the 14th annual Desperado LGBTQ plus Film Festival. Thank you. And my name's Lisa Haas, and I'm an actor and writer. And I'd like to thank Alan so much for asking me to moderate this. Thank you very much. And it's a complete and total honor. And just so for the folks who tune in at a later time for this is the shorts panel. So there's a whole bunch of shorts in the festival, but we have a few of the shorts filmmakers here. And could we go around and say our name, our role, and what movie we're with, and give a little wave so people can like see where you're at? How about maybe Luigi? Would you go first?
So hi, I'm Luigi Gonzalez. I am the writer of the short film The Interview.
Hi, I'm Brydie O'Connor. I am the director of Love, Barbara.
I'm Rachel. I'm the writer and director of Moving Out.
I'm Ashley, the producer and editor of Moving Out.
So hi, I'm Jordi Wijnalda. I'm the writer and director of the short film Foster.
Fantastic. Well, here's what we're going to do today. I have like sort of a similar question for everyone, and some people maybe a slightly different question. And there's also space for you all to talk about other things. Then we're going to play a fun game, and then we'll have final words. So here's a question, I guess, for everyone to that I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. You know how people say, why now? Why now was the time for you to do this film? Which I think is sort of a gaslight kind of question. Like, well, do you know what I mean? Why now? It's like it should have been 10 years ago or what, but films take a long time to do, and they're expensive and stuff like that. So it's like, as opposed to why like now, it doesn't matter what time it was. What about your movie do you want people to see? It could be like a theme, a particular scene, but like what is it that you want audience members to get to experience by seeing your film?
I do have a very particular why now for my film, actually. That ties into the bigger topic of what I want people to take away from the film. So maybe good to like kind of sketch that. Foster is a short film about the last morning that a foster family is together, consisting of two dads and two sons, and one of the sons is going to go back to his biological father before the morning is over. And this was based on things that had happened to my producer, Rogier Kramer, in his circle of friends. And he came to me with this idea, and he asked me, like, is this something that you would want to make a film about? And for like an entire year, I just kept it simmering in my head and thinking about, yes, sure, I feel things about this idea, but is it a story that I can tell? Is it a story that I can like transform into a short film? And then I started to realize that I have a very strong desire to become a dad myself. That kind of totally like through that film, I started to really feel those, like, I mean, they're not ovaries, of course, but they're like something in me. It was like, like being like, hello, are you paying attention to this instinct? And that was kind of exciting. So actually, like, the process of the film taught me something about myself, and in learning that about myself, I realized that I could be the person making this film and telling this story.
That's great. And I wanted to ask, like, because and it might be like I might be limited in what I'm watching, but I was going to say I don't like often see films about like gay men who are fathers. Mm-hmm. And so that's a more rare occurrence, and so I really appreciated getting to see that.
I'm really happy you say that. Like, that's something that's been very important to both my producer and me. Like, we want to kind of move beyond the kind of the queer stories that you see most often told, the ones about like coming out or like problematic sexuality or all that. Like, this is very much about, no, these men just happen to be gay, but they happen to be fathers, and that's all very perfectly normal. What's not normal is that they have to give up one of their kids. And that's a story that was very important for us to tell and for us to share with audiences. And I'm particularly happy to see this film being picked up by both queer film festivals and children's festivals alike, because I think to both audiences the film provides something that I think is not, as you say, it's not shown very regularly.
Very cool. Thank you so much. How about Rachel and Ashley? What is it about like your film that you want people to see, or what's the most important thing?
Sure. I think what's different about our film is probably the approach. I think in the past we've seen like LGBTQ community versus the church, and so I think we've been pushing for like more open communication, and even the way that we, approach the film. And we ended up so we shot it in my hometown of Oceanside, California, which was kind of a crazy idea. And, I would say all the producing team, we were all gay, and trying to find a church to film in was a little bit tricky. And so we ended up filming at my childhood church, which was kind of unexpected if you see the movie. And that was incredible because, I mean, like as a queer person, getting the chance to like tell my story and having all these members of the LGBTQ community walking around the church and shooting this film was fantastic. And a lot of people from the local church community like housed our crew, and so obviously the issues between the church and the LGBTQ community and acceptance and inclusion continue to persist, and that will always make coming out difficult, for example. But I think with our film, we're hoping to convey the message that, it doesn't have to be a choice between, your faith and loving the people that you love.
For me, I found incredibly rewarding. I think personally, I had to relearn what meant to come out, because I was raised with a single mom and 2 gay dads, and I never thought that it would be an issue to date another woman. And for me, being in a liberal household, it was never an issue. And then I met Rachel, and
we're married.
And I kind of had to. It was a learning curve, because also coming from Canada, I think just different. For me it was just like different community, and I was like, oh wow, it's still such a big challenge to come out in certain communities. And so for me, it was such an incredible experience to learn more about where Rachel is from and the reality that to this day a lot of people still go through.
And this is, thank you for sharing that. I have an off the record question. Did you also stay, I guess, Rachel, did you stay at your parents' house as well?
Did as well, yeah. My parents, well, the story is not like 100% like based in fact. Obviously it does hit close to home, and for my parents it's been like a big journey, but to their credit, they've really become big activists. They're even in the film, so it's like it's beautiful, yeah.
And so here's the off the record question. Were your parents like, oh, we were never bothered by that? Were they, oh, we didn't bother us, even though that perhaps they were?
That we were making this film? Oh, off the record, it was a journey as well. Like they were really, initially, they had a hard time at first.
I think they were very nervous because they didn't know how we would approach the material. And I think what I find unique about Rachel's approach that would have been different to mine, for instance, is that she approaches it with, serious. She's serious about faith in a sense that she recognizes that it's, where she's from, and finding a way to keep the communication open. And I find that in the approach that I've seen in the past, when talking about church and the LGBT community, it's sort of black and white. And definitely in my background, I mean, we're not religious, my family. And so they always had a more sort of like black and white approach of like, you know, religion is bad, the church is bad. But what I found fascinating about Rachel's approach is, what if the two can coexist? Like, what if you can have faith and also be who you are and love who you want to love? And I became more open to that, instead of being kind of like, oh, no, that's not possible. It's like, there can be both. And yeah. So.
And just because we see at the end of the, as she's packing up to leave, we see her get her Bible, and you're like, you don't know if she can like throw it out the window, or but then she like packs it to take it with her.
I will say, like, that kind of was a little bit of a personal moment in my own life. We were packing to move, and
I told Rachel, you should throw it out the window.
Yeah, and I was like, no, I came across my childhood Bible, and I was like, oh, what do I do with this? Because these days I don't attend church regularly, but I think, you know, it's my roots, it's how I was raised, and it still has sentimental value to me. And it's like, you know, it's your roots. So I found myself, I couldn't get rid of it, basically. So I decided to hang on to it.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Brydie, what about I guess the question was, what was it, one thing or a theme or the whole thing that you really want audience members to see?
Yeah, so Love Barbara is about the legacy of pioneering lesbian experimental filmmaker Barbara Hammer. And I decided to make the film right after Barbara passed in 2019. She, you know, I had studied her work in undergraduate. I had done my thesis on her work. I had met Barbara. I had worked with her on that project. So when she passed, I had reached out to Flory to talk about working on this project together, making a documentary. And I think, you know, the biggest takeaway from the film that I would like, you know, people to take away is that, you know, Barbara, she was a prolific filmmaker. You know, she was a daring filmmaker. She did, you know, she documented her own life and her body and her relationships and her surroundings as kind of a marker of history. So oftentimes I think of her as, you know, a historian in a sense. And I think that now that she had passed, you know, she had cancer for years, and she knew that, you know, her time was coming to an end. And so she organized her archive to kind of be explored beyond her passing. And I think these past few years, you know, we started the process in 2019 and the pandemic hit. So, you know, our timeline was just shifted in terms of that. But since she's passed, you know, her archive has been explored for the first time. You know, there have been things, you know, videos and letters and works of art that have been discovered. So it's kind of this ongoing kind of, you know, current thing that's been happening is Barbara's archive, and you know, her work is kind of being understood in a different way beyond her passing. So I felt very, very lucky to be able to make this film in that time period where, you know, myself going through the archives and as a researcher and a filmmaker, and also Flory, her partner of over 30 years, who's featured in the film. You know, we were in the process of discovering things in real time that Barbara had left behind, which was, you know, it felt kind of like you know, a treasure hunt in that sense. So I'm excited for, you know, people who know and love Barbara and her work to you know, get to see this and you know more about her greatest love with Flory and how her legacy is being carried out. But for those who also don't know Barbara as well, I think this is, you know, an accessible look into her life and work, and you know, and all that she did.
Thank you for sharing that. I was wondering, like, did you know Flory before you started making the documentary?
I didn't. No.
So how did you get access to her? How did you approach her? And because I bet a million people were reaching out to her and are still reaching out to her that want to do stuff. And what was it that made her engage with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that her and I have talked about a lot since since we met in late 2019. I want to say in the winter, but I just emailed her out of the blue. I told her I was such a huge fan of Barbara's, that I had worked with her. I had written papers on her, and I had Barbara was such a huge inspiration for me. I had reached out to Barbara just about a month or two before she passed, and I told her, I'm going into production on my first short film. Do you have any advice? And she told me, that this was the end. She was at the very end of her life, and so I had told Flory all of that, and just said respectfully, if you'd like to meet for coffee. We both lived in New York at the time, and we met. She responded to me, and we met, and it was definitely we continued to meet. We built trust. I had planned on going into production prior to March of 2020, but it we set it aside until we were vaccinated. So yeah, we just built trust and built a relationship, and I think Barbara means so much. Barbara and her work means so much to Flory, and it means Barbara and her work means so much to me in different ways. And I think we used to joke. She used to joke when I would go to her apartment every week in New York that it was like a Barbara love fest. We would go through her things and talk about her, and but it was great. It was also it's great to build a friendship and a relationship with Flory, and get to know her as her own person as well as a participant of the documentary. So it's been really great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Luigi, just to repeat the question, what is it that the most important thing, or that you want people to see about your story?
Okay, so the short film is 85% what happened in my actual green card interview. I guess what I want the audience to take away from it is sort of the pressure that we multinational couples experience, especially gay couples like us, who my home country is not necessarily like my in my home country, my marriage does not exist. There's another story for another short, but a long story short, my husband's name got whited out of my passport application, and the person at the embassy said, well, back home you're not married, back home you're single. So the stakes are they're high, but they're on the surface, I think a lot of people take it for granted. But yeah, until it was happening, my husband told me they could separate us. But yeah, so I despite the film being a lighter comedy, the pressure is there, the stakes are high. Yeah.
And off the record question, does your husband did in real life, was he like, we need to know the color of the toothbrushes, we need to know which?
Oh, okay. So actually, you can leave this on the record.
On the record.
By all means. Yes, the color of the toothbrush was the first question given to me by my immigration lawyer. He had a whole list of questions, like what color is his toothbrush, what side of the bed does he sleep on, draw a diagram of your entire apartment, basically retell your whole love story from the meet cute to today, stuff like that.
So
and none of it was asked.
none of it was asked. Okay, very
Yeah.
funny, and it's very funny in the
Yeah.
movie too. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
answering that.